Hi everyone, welcome back to our ongoing series on how to create a life operating system in Notion. Today we're going to continue our exploration of the knowledge management section. This is a whole module that can stand on its own or can plug into the rest of the life operating system. But it's got a whole systems thinking approach as to how to capture and intake information and knowledge, process it, and then put it into a form that's easily accessible for us to use in our projects and tasks, in our habits and routines, and pursuing our pillars and just thinking in general, or creating content, or creating awareness or understanding so that we can contribute more to conversations and to whatever capacity we find ourselves in, either in work context or in our lives, our personal lives. So this is an extremely valuable part of the system, though it's interesting, it can stand on its own, but it works extremely well when plugged in to the project, task, goal, management, operating system that we've been talking about up until this point. 2 videos ago, we did an overview of the whole knowledge management system, which of course is a series of databases that I call vaults, and they of course fit within the vaults section of the pillars, pipelines, and vaults organizational structure. In the last video, we dove into the books vault, and today we're going to dive in great detail into the media vault. The media vault is where we capture all other forms of media. Now, you could put your books in this vault as well. I talked about in the last video why I separated books, and that's totally a personal preference. But regardless, the media vault will contain all of your articles, whether they come from newsletters or blogs or magazines or newspapers, all in digital form, of course. And it'll also include podcasts and videos and any kind of multimedia. So it collects all of them and then, of course, sorts and organizes them such that you can create views for each individual type of media if you want. And then we're also going to touch on more briefly the training vault. The training vault is, of course, for courses and training programs that you might take. It's a different structure in terms of fields and databases. That's why I have it separate from the media vault. You could, of course, merge it, but when you start merging everything, you end up having a lot of extra fields and properties that are unused in some, and other ones are unused in others. And at some point, I just like to break them off and have a separate vault where it feels like its own home. So that was the case with books. That's also the case with training. Training has an even more unique set of fields and properties, as I'll show you. So a quick look at the training vault, and then a more in-depth look at the media vault. We'll look at how we capture and bring inputs into the media vault, and then how we organize it and make the information we capture there available widely to other parts of the system. As usual, if you have any thoughts or questions, leave them in the comments below. If you want to engage in a broader discussion, join us on Twitter. And with that, let's dive in. Okay, so we're back to the Mind Expansion dashboard. Again, this is a demo, so I can show more detail in some of the areas that I would typically have more private notes. I have some samples here so we can look at it more cleanly. So in the last video, we looked at the library. Continuing our exploration of the knowledge sources midsection here. In the last video, we looked at the library, which is where the book vault is held. And we dove deep into that. Today, we're going to look at both the media vault and what I call the academy, which is the courses and training vault. Now, both the media vault and the courses and training vault are in the vaults section of the pillars, pipelines, and vaults organizational structure. After we finish the vault section, I'm going to do a whole video or 2 on the high-level organizational structure of the pillars, pipelines, and vaults system and how it's used both organizationally and conceptually to sort of frame and guide the design of the whole system. So we're going to get specific in that after we finish the vaults, because at that point we will have finished the vaults, the pipelines, and the pillars, and we can speak about the concept behind it more clearly because you'll have a very specific understanding of what each section is. So that's coming up after the vaults. But for now, we are diving into the media vault, which is here in the vault section, and the training vault, which is also in the vault section. Now diving into the training vault first. This is the training vault within what I call the Academy toggle. So this is largely a demo because I used to take a lot of courses. Courses can be incredible. If you find the right ones, they can be life-changing. You have to be a bit discerning because there's a lot of not so good courses. But the ones that are good are phenomenal. I can't recommend them enough. They can change the entire game, either for business or for personal growth or what have you. So I have found some of the courses I've taken to be really profound and changed how I approach business and life. This training vault section here is largely a demo because I just wanted to show you how you might structure one. I'm not taking a lot of courses now. I just don't have time with all the things that I'm starting up and maintaining, but I have taken many courses in the past. Courses can be a phenomenal way to learn. It's a much more organized, structured, to the point way of learning than wandering through the internet more broadly. And if it's the right course, it can really be transformational. These can be game changing either for business or for life or performance. So if you find the right course, that can be a really profound learning and growing experience. But one of the key things is you not just go through it on autopilot, but that you deliberately extract as much information out of it while you're focused on it. You extract the information so that later you can easily and quickly scan and review what you went through. You can pull out the most valuable elements and make them readily accessible for a review later or for sharing with others. If you're on a team and you're taking the course, you might put the notes in such a way that everyone else can benefit. Of course, you won't get the same benefit of having taken the course, but scanning a really good set of notes from a course can be really helpful to someone who didn't have the time or didn't put the effort in to do the course. It lets you do what's called spaced repetition, which is you put gaps of time at different intervals between the original exposure and subsequent exposures to the information. That helps you internalize it and learn it and really understand it. And it lets you, when you need to review it for something that comes up that's relevant later, it's easily accessible in a very digestible and skimmable form. So each of these is a course, and you first line them up. So you've got a status. You've got ones you're doing, ones you intend to do or hope to do, ones you're considering but not sure, and then ones you've completed. So the top of this is just about lining up possibilities so that you don't forget them. When you encounter one that sounds interesting, you'll line it up just like with books, you're thinking about reading the ones you definitely intend to do, the ones you might do, line them up. You could even put a priority indicator here if you start getting a lot of them. But that means when you sit down to do a course or you have time to dive into something deeper, you have everything you've ever considered as interesting available here and sorted and ready to make a choice. Then perhaps even more importantly, of the courses you do take, what are listed down here is completed. And again, we're not filtering right now because I wanted you to see the whole database, but you could easily sort these by to-do possibilities and completed courses because they're very different categories. The completed courses will have extensive notes inside of them. This is where you take all of your notes while you're doing the course. If it's an online course, you can do screenshots of slides, of diagrams, of illustrations, mix those with all the notes that you're taking, and you will have the most incredible resource. In many ways, it'll be more valuable than the original course material itself because you've digested and prioritized what resonated with you, what was most relevant for what you're trying to achieve, and you've just extracted the highlights that you can easily skim. And having gone through it deeply, you can now just remind yourself with the top line notes. And of course, we could apply the same hierarchical highlighting that I talked about in the book notes area. So within these, even more so than books and certainly more so than articles or videos, you could create extensive organizational structures for the different weeks and segments of the course. You could create it for a large course. Some of the bigger, more expensive courses have just an extraordinary amount of information covering a lot of different topics relevant to the focus of the course. And you could create a whole dashboard. In fact, I would highly recommend this, a whole dashboard of subpages and databases within the course workspace inside each record in this database so that they go deeper and it's extremely organized. So if you wanted to go into section 4 of module B of a long 8-week course, you could easily find it and then you get all the information from that and it's right there at your fingertips. So I highly recommend you, when you take a course, especially a significant course, that's both an investment in time and money, that you really lay out an organizational structure and you capture everything that you can. Everything you encounter in that course that seems valuable or potentially valuable in the future, lay it out in a highly organized structure, create a dashboard on the front page, and then go into a subpage structure and just lay it all out with screenshots and notes. So that's pretty much it. I don't have demonstrations because at the time I was taking long, elaborate courses, I was not using Notion. So I didn't have the benefit of this. But if I ever took a long, elaborate course, I would definitely lay it out in great detail and structure in here. And now I'm taking some quick, short, easy ones, like this Visualize Value course, which has been great. They're simple, they're short, and I'm laying these out more in the way that I would do book notes. So you can go either way depending on the scope and depth of the course. Now jumping up to the Media Vault. This is where I want to spend more time because this is something that absolutely everybody should be implementing in one way or another. Because everybody's encountering a flood of information online. And if you're not documenting and capturing it, it floats in and it fades away. And the time spent digesting it is usually just wasted because you haven't captured anything from it. If you don't make an effort to read deliberately and capture the information so it's accessible later, you just miss so much of what you engage with. And it just becomes a waste because it just becomes a blur that's inaccessible. So when I open the Media Vault, again, this is a demo with just some sample articles. not the full one. The full one, of course, would be a lot larger, and it gets larger and larger over time, which is great. That just makes it more and more valuable over time. So this view here, I use occasionally, not always. It's actually my second view here, but I just wanted to show it to you as an option. You can line up the status in sequence on this board. So maybe later, to do, on it now. Just saving means I want to have it in the archive, but I'm not going to take the time to actually go through it thoroughly. Although that's a pretty rare instance that I do that. And then completed, of course, are the finished ones. But more frequently, I'll work with the master table view, or of course I have the to-do view and the completed view. The master table view just has the two of those combined, so it'll be easier to see how this works. It's organized sorting primarily by status and secondarily by priority. In third place, we have the future value rank. So I'll explain that. That's separate. This is for the completed articles. The top two are for the to-read articles. I used to use at one point Pocket and at another point Instapaper, and those are great. They have great reading experiences, but I found it's really difficult to highlight and get those highlights to come across in any smooth automated way. So I have taken lately to not using Pocket or Instapaper and using Notion as my read later app. And it's been working great because this way I can do all the highlighting and note-taking in its final destination. It just gives me so much more freedom. And of course, Notion has a lot more color coding and ways to designate the highlighting hierarchy. And of course, the versions of Pocket and Instapaper that allow you to do extensive highlighting and note-taking are expensive. So Notion here, with all of its other capabilities, gives you all the ability to do your read later capture for articles in one place and the place that they're ultimately going to end up. So you don't have to worry about transfers and movement between apps, in which you inevitably lose some of your notes and highlighting. And also beyond what Pocket or Instapaper can do, it lets you really structure a hierarchy and priority level of what you're going to read in what order. So as it's coming in, and I'll show you how I capture it, it lets you set both a status, and the status here, we have on it now, which means this is what I'm doing. I'm engaged with this piece of content at the moment. I've already started it. To do means it's something I intend to do, but I definitely want to do. Maybe later means if I get a chance, but not essential. Completed, of course, means I finished it. Just saving is pretty rare. I don't use this very often, but it means I'm capturing it. I'm not going to read it, but I want to have it there in case I need it. Generally, use Evernote for everything, but now this is the one thing I use Evernote for. If there's a chance I might want it later, but I don't have a specific use for it, I just think I might have a use for it later, I'll throw it in Evernote. It's much easier to find there than searching the web and trying to remember where I saw it. You know, Evernote's got a good search feature. It's got a good AI, that recommendation engine. Things can bubble up. It's got good tagging and of course the notebooks. So it's easy to find if I throw it in there. I don't want to clutter the Notion database with just this endless flood of maybes, kinda, sorta, probably nots. I only bring something into Notion when it's something relevant to what I'm working on, to projects or tasks or goals or habits or pillars, or it's something that I know I'm just curious about and engaged with, and I know it's going to be relevant to some interest or some activity. Otherwise, it goes into Evernote as perhaps. That's just the endless shoebox. And I don't mind Evernote overflowing and just getting stuffed. It's an endless, bottomless shoebox that I can throw everything in. But Notion is more deliberate. It's got a higher bar. It's more curated. And so when I go in here, everything in here is some specific value. It's just cleared a higher standard for entry. And then finally about archive, which means if I've completed something, but I don't have any intended use for it again in the future, I'll just archive it. So even in a filtered completed view, I would want to remove it so it's less cluttered and there's just higher signal to noise even in the completed view. And then finally, sharing is a category I use when it's an article. In many cases, I've refined it or shortened it so it gets to the point really quickly, and it's something I share commonly. Perhaps I'll share frequently with a lot of consulting clients. Increasingly, I could see communities that we're building together. I could share things with you guys. And in many cases, the original article was too hard to find the point that I'm trying to share. So I'll modify the article and put it in the sharing category. And then it's really designed for sharing with either a specific set of people or broadly, publicly. And it's just nice to have that category. Notion, of course, is brilliant for that. You can do a public link or you can do private invites. Either way, it's nice to have a section of your media archive that you frequently share with people, optimized and customized for sharing in a way that helps them get to the point more quickly. Sometimes I'll duplicate the original article to have the sharing version. and that's really helpful. Okay, so sorting down, again, typically I would even have a much longer list than this, but this is a demo collection that I thinned out just for the sake of a quick demonstration here. So again, on it now is at top, to-do is next. Everything in the to-do is organized by priority here, which is super helpful. You can't do that in Pocket or Instapaper. Then we get down here to the maybe laters. Again, this would typically go into Evernote, except if there's a good likelihood, then I might throw it in Notion. But more significantly, we get down here to the completed. So the completeds no longer have priorities because I've already consumed them, but they do have what I call a future value rank. Doesn't mean how good or bad the article is. It means the likelihood that I'm going to find value in this in the future. So it's sort of an assessment of what I expect to want to revisit. So I will sort as the third priority the future value rank. So once we get into the completeds, they will all be organized by this future value rank. It's just one way to try to help me cut through the clutter and get to the thing that's most valuable. Most likely, I'm just going to be going into the search right here. The search is great in Notion, and that's how I'm going to find it. Or I'm going to perhaps sort it by the date last edited, which means the date that that record was last touched, and therefore sort of a chronological sequence, just so I can find it quickly. But usually I can find it by search, or it would, in all likelihood, it's going to be attached to one of the Knowledge Lab items, and there'll be a direct link to the Knowledge Lab. So we'll go deeper into the Knowledge Lab, but 2 videos ago I showed you how the Knowledge Lab works on sort of a summary level. And then finally down here we have sharings and a few of these just savings. Now I do save a lot more articles than anything else, but I'm really loving how the video capture is working as well, and I'm going to be doing a lot more video, so I'll show you why that's so great. I also capture podcasts here. I tend to listen to podcasts while doing other things, so it's harder for me to take notes while I'm doing it. If I hear something really powerful, I will stop, get out my phone, and enter this in Notion. But for the most part, that's more friction than I'm willing to endure. So podcasts don't make it in as often as they would ideally. But I did just hear about a new podcast listener called Air that I'm going to dive into deeper. I've been in touch with the owner about that. Perhaps we'll do something on that if it turns out to be as promising as it looks. But podcast is a difficult one to capture. Video is a lot easier, and I'll show you why that's so great. Within the articles that are completed, as you read them, you want to take really good notes. At the very least, you want to highlight it. So as you read an article, first of all, are the articles captured using the Notion web clipper, which I'm going to demonstrate after we've gone through the database. It will capture the title and the link, and 95% of the time it'll capture the whole article. I'll show you what to do if it doesn't capture that article. The vast majority of the time, the article will come in with it, and it'll be nicely formatted, which is great, which means all you have to do to get a nice table of contents is create a couple lines there, type /TOC for table of contents, and it will take all of the headings. See down here, we've got 1 heading, 2 heading. These larger formatted text are headings. This is a very short article, so it doesn't have much. For a longer article, this is amazing to have this automatically created table of contents, and then you just click here and it takes you down to the part of the page. It opens it up to a full page and takes you to that part at the bottom. If you want to go to the next one, it takes you straight to it. Also just gives you a list, an index of what's in the article. So that's amazing that that can be created automatically, and most articles will come in with the formatting such that the headings are set up for that table of contents. I showed you this in the book vault, but it's the same thing in media that's captured, especially text, is the hierarchical highlighting that I do. I will use a color gradient of yellow, orange, and red. Orange will be my default highlight, so if I read something interesting, I will highlight that and make it orange. And then once you've set one color, anything else you highlight, if you just hit Command-Shift-H on a Mac or Control-Shift-H on a PC, it will apply the same color. If you want to bold it, Command or Control-B, of course, will bold it, which is a nice feature too. And if something is worth highlighting but not quite as important as the orange, I'll do a yellow. If something is more important, then I will make it red. Some cases I will go to the pink, which is actually a little bit more vibrant than the red even. So that just feels like a gradient along the color spectrum. And that gives me a series of highlights that, depending on how much time I want to spend skimming it or running through it quickly, I can go at just the highest level, I could go to the medium level, or I could go to the full level of all the highlights. And it gives me various levels of review options. Of course, if there are any notes, you can add notes. One way to do that is to go comment. This is super interesting. Please remember. And of course, we got the quick spell checker. And then hit send, and that's just going to put a note there. So you can easily re-access it here. But where this becomes even more valuable is if you're discussing this, if you have team members, others who share your Notion with you, you can put a comment here, type the comment to the, and then put @ in the name. It'll give all the people that you share your space with, and you can choose someone like that who's in your shared space and communicate with that person. So that's pretty cool. Now, of course, if you want it to pop out even more, you might even put remember this, and just, you could apply either a call out, which is what I often do. So that's, you can set your own icon there. That just pops it out in a block that lets you know it's a note to yourself. And then you've got this whole hierarchy of highlighting and notation, which to me is just way better than Evernote. You have so many more layers and so much more nuance. You hear a lot of discussion about this progressive summarization. And honestly, I find it just too limiting. It's only 2 levels of hierarchy. You need way more nuance than that. Now, of course, that evolved, as I mentioned, I think in a previous video, because it was designed for Evernote, which is just limited. It has yellow highlighting and it has bold. So it was designed for that. But Notion gives us so much more capability, which is why I think systems that are designed for specific platforms can leverage the platform and they just function better. They have so much more depth and capability to them. And when the platform is Notion, which is the most capable of all platforms, then a system designed specifically for Notion is just going to have so much more capability than a generic system that's trying to be platform agnostic, or frankly, a system designed for really any other platform. So that's why I think Notion is just such a unique opportunity to build a life operating system, because it's the most capable. And of course, when you're designing specifically for it, you leverage it further. So if you highlight all the articles you read, and this can be done really fast, especially if you're doing your read later saving in Notion itself. And this works great on mobile as well. It's just an incredibly valuable resource when you go back to the whole completed database. So you'll want to have views both for to do, which of course will grow much larger than this. Mine is certainly much larger than this. And you'll want to have a view for completed. So it's just one's the knowledge collected and aggregated and there for you. And the other is the knowledge waiting for you to get to. So it's nice to have them in separate views because they're really different things. But they should definitely be in one database. So it's just one flow from to do to completed, and it's all there. So now I'm going to show you the web clipper just so it's clear how to bring articles and videos into this vault. So here we have an article in Wired. Just any article will work the same. You will have installed the Chrome extension for Notion. This is the Notion web clipper, very similar to the Evernote clipper, but it's got one element that I actually find much better. So I'll show you why I prefer that part of the web clipper in Notion. So it will grab the article. It's going to give you the vault you saved most recently in the workspace that vault is in. If you click on the vault, you can choose other vaults that were saved recently, or type here any vault within your entire Notion system. You can save directly to any vault, but frequently it'll be the media vault or the book vault. So in this case, I'm doing the demo media vault, and then you hit save. And this is the part I love. It immediately gives you a button to open in Notion. And since Notion's web browser version is just as good as its desktop app version, you have the full functionality. That's what I like much better about the Notion web clipper than the Evernote web clipper. Evernote will also take you to its web version, but the Evernote web version is far less capable than its desktop app version. So this lets you jump in here, and now you can immediately add any tags or data that you want to bring with it. Obviously brings the title, brings a link, the URL, and the whole article with photos, which is awesome. In most cases, it'll have headings, so you can create a table of contents. In this case, the article itself didn't have any headings. I guess it had 1 or 2 there, so not as much to do with the table of contents here, but if you did have a lot of headings, which is common, you just do /TOC. Regardless, you got the photos, you got all this. Now I usually clean up this a little bit. Often I'll put the magazine because that's more useful as a reference. And then I'll just do article, status to do, priority, second priority. After I read it, I'll give it the future value rank. Tags, business operations, purpose, let's say insight, whatever. You set your own tags and purpose. Those can be merged together if you want. I like them separately. And then if this pertains to a Knowledge Lab item that is a topic that you're aggregating information on more broadly, beyond an individual article, you'll link to that here. And then you'll have that bidirectional link between the two of them. And this will be part of that knowledge topic that you're accumulating and growing in the Knowledge Hub. So with that, you're pretty much set. And this is entered in the database. And then it's going to line up in the hierarchy as you sort and filter. Now, as cool as that is, what I find even cooler is when you're watching a video, the web clipper is phenomenal as well. So let's say we're just in YouTube here. I just grabbed a random high performance focused video. I recently in my newsletter did a newsletter essay about Jocko Willink's Discipline Equals Freedom Maxim. If you haven't read that, I highly recommend it. It got an incredible response from readers. But this was one of the inspirations for that. So this is a video where he talks about that premise. And all you have to do is from any YouTube or Vimeo page, you just hit the Notion web clipper, pick your database, and just take the title as it is. You'll clean it up once you move over there. Hit Save Page. It saves the title as it was listed there, the link, and it brings in the video embedded in the workspace. I think that's just amazing. So you can watch it from here. From now on, it's totally accessible inside your Notion workspace for the entry you just captured. So if it's a podcast or something that's got a lot of extra formatting, I'll clean that up so that it's easy to skim when you're looking for what you want to read or watch. And then you'll put in the medium will be video. The status will be, if it's something you haven't seen yet but you want to watch, if this is your watch later, just like the other is your read later, this is the watch later, you put it in to do. If you've watched it and you just want to save it because you found it really valuable, you'll put it in completed. If it's to do later, you'll give it a priority. If it's completed, you'll give it a future value rank. And then you'll give it any tags or purpose designations that are useful. Those tags just give you options for sorting and looking for things later. Files are just if you're saving a PDF, if that's the form you happen to have the media in. But for videos or articles, you typically wouldn't use that. Completion date's not a bad idea to enter the date that you completed or consumed it. That might be useful for finding it later. Although typically last edit will be essentially a proxy for the same thing. And then, yeah, you've got this video embedded here. Then ideally, here's the best way to do it. You capture it when you're about to watch it, and then you take notes on it down here as you're watching it. You're just taking notes as it's right there in your note taker. Like, how great is that? You're watching it and taking notes as you go. If it turns out you don't like it, just, come up here and delete it. Boom, gone. But if it turns out to be good, you've got all your notes as you watched it, and you're going to learn more from it if you're taking notes while you're watching it. You're going to have the highlights captured and easily skimmable and easily accessible later. So that's the best way to be watching videos when you're watching to learn. So that's pretty much what the Media Vault does. It captures this. The real purpose of the Media Vault is to capture and organize information so that we can then use it later. And the place we use it primarily is in the Knowledge Lab. And that's what we're going to get into in the next video. But by capturing it and organizing it properly in a consistent, systematic way, capturing all the notes and the highlights, it becomes a massively valuable resource to then draw on when we put it into the next level of accessibility and knowledge absorption and refinement, which we'll dive into deeper when we explore the Knowledge Lab. So there you have it. That's how you capture media from various destinations, organize it, sort it, and have it ready to go for other uses. Next, we're going to dive into the Knowledge Lab. That's where we put that knowledge we capture from various sources to better use and take it to the next level in terms of making it valuable, accessible. We expand on it through our own thinking and reflecting. We pull in notes. We pull in information from conversations. We bring it all together in the Knowledge Lab. If this is of interest, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to get updates on future videos. Leave thoughts or questions below, or join us on Twitter for a broader conversation. And hit like if you found this video valuable. I also write a newsletter called Mind and Machine on increasing human capability. I give away several of my best Notion templates to anyone who subscribes to the newsletter. You can, of course, unsubscribe at any time, but I hope you'll give it a chance. I work super hard to pack it with a lot of valuable insight. The newsletter link is below in the show notes. Thanks for watching. Lots more to come.